What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and literally we are back. Yes, vacation's done and over with. We have internet again, we have service. We didn't have that because we were pretty much out at sea, from our little cruise, but now we are back here. And what I wanted to do was take a look at the recent Victory Road September challenge that pretty much just wrapped up a couple hours ago. Now, again, I understand that Regulation E format was announced. And we'll do a video covering that in just a bit, but what I really wanted to do was at least cover this first, just because Pittsburgh regionals are coming up, and people are starting to prepare, get their teams ready, getting all kinds of preparations done, and this is a pretty good way to do it. This was a 320 plus person tournament, and again, it gives us some much updated data that we can look at and just see and observe and see what we can expect heading into Pittsburgh, right? So basically, for the most part, if you just look at, just the top cut here, from 1 through all the way down to 30, you can pretty much just see that there's a lot of Tornadus Hyper Offense, and that goes without saying. If we looked at even the Japan Invitational, the World Championships, we kind of pretty much saw the same thing. And if we even look at the winner here, Tomoyuki, with this pretty much this Tornadus Chanpao Arcanine team, right? And again, it is the Life Orb set, and this is the Flutter Mane Calm Mind stuff, right? And you don't necessarily have to run the Flutter Mane Calm Mind. It does help in a lot of different mirror matches, of course. But at the end of the day, you can pretty much see the same 6 and see different sets. But for the most part, the team more or less can function in similar fashion. But of course, just slight variations in in moves and Terra options will just affect how the team functions just in general. But this was the winning team from Tomoyuki, and again, it's Rain Dance Tornadus as opposed to something like Sunny Day or Icy Wind, which we'll go over in a bit. But this was the Life Orb Chanpao set, and again with Icicle Crash, you're not blowing up your own Rillaboom's terrain, and you're getting around the Rocky Helmet shenanigans, because that was one of Chanpao's little boon, right? It got chipped out of its Focus Sash because of the Rocky Helmet stuff. And then from there, it was just easy to KO if you had like a faster Flutter Mane, for example, right? Or even like an Urshifu. But from here, it's Mystic Water, Urshifu, and then with Choice Band, Hisuian Arcanine, right? This almost looks like a team, again, where you might even see Dragonite. But again, the Dragonite option has fallen off tremendously. People are either going with like this Choice Band Arcanine stuff, or they're even just going with like Landorus, right? Which I understand, right? You miss the Intimidate support, and you're still hitting hard with the Choice Band, right? But at the same time, you get access to a lot of other moves. You're not just simply an extreme speed bot. You have other good, strong moves that you can utilize, especially if you're the Hisuian Arcanine, okay? You've got hard-hitting Flare Blitzes. You got Stab Rock Slide, which is really good against like Tornadus, Chanpao stuff. That's pretty much the reason why it rose to prominence, a lot, is because the Stab Rock Slide is very, very good. Along with, still keeping access to extreme speed, something from the Dragonite. And then, of course, you have a single target head smash, which, does a lot of recoil, of course, but at the same time, do you really care if you're able to pick up that key KO that can win you the game, right? And then, of course, Rillaboom, again, very, very standard here. No surprise here from Tomoyuki here. And then even this team, right? Like I said, here's the Landorus option. It almost looks like you want Dragonite here, but again, Landorus has been, on the rise, and as well as the Arcanine, of course. And it's probably the way to go if you're trying to go to Pittsburgh. Not to say that Dragonite is not good. It's still very, very good. But at the same time, just given the meta where it is right now, the Landorus and or the Arcanine, just a little bit more better options at the given moment, right? And, again, you have the Intimidate here, but again, flying type here with ground immunity is very, very good. Stomping Tantrum, great against, stuff like an opposing Iron Hands, a Goldengo, even a Flutter Mane. You can pick up a KO, depending on the set. You get U-turn for that pivot option, so you can recycle your Intimidates. But overall, this was like, again, the second place team. So no Tornadus here, but again, still opting for this idea, with Flutter Mane, Chanpao, Urshifu, and now you have a Landorus as a genie as opposed to a Tornadus, and still you have the staple, the tape, as I like to call it, the Iron Hands, with Fake Out Pressure, able to pivot here with Volt Switch along with U-turn. That's very, very good. So you can recycle your Intimidates and or Fake Outs, which is nice. This one is a Focus Sash Chanpao as opposed to Life Orb, which sometimes a lot more people prefer, which is still okay, depending on how you want to view it. And then at the same time, here's your Amoonguss with a very standard set with Rage Powder, Pollen Puff, Protect, and of course Spore. All right, so no surprise here. But what I also wanted to look at, just in general, like I said, there's like, what is it, like more than 10 Tornadus teams out of the 30, you know, in terms of like hyper offense. And really what it really comes down to is this, right? So with Tornadus, you either have something like this where you have the Sunny Day Tornadus with, like, of course, the Tailwind, Bleak Wind, Storm stuff. Then here you either have something like Taunt or Protect. Then same idea here with Rain Dance Tornadus, right? You know, you're creating weather, you know, with this, you know, because you are a prankster Pokemon. But then you might just forego the weather altogether and just say, I'm going to try and win the mirror matchup and go with Icy Wind. Which we do see in some of these teams from Victory Road, which we can inspect in just a moment. But Icy Wind Tornadus with Protect is also another way to consider it. And Protect can be very, very useful, of course, because a lot of these Tornadus teams, they don't go for the Protect, they go for the Taunt instead because they find it a little bit more valuable in denying, you know, other Tailwind coming up from a Tornadus, other Trick Room coming out from a potential Trick Room team. So, you know, they value that. But at the same time, you know, just positioning with Protect can also very, very much help you. And then at the same time, you may just not have any of those and just go simply Taunt and Protect. No weather, no Icy Wind, just give me the Taunt, but I still want Protect. And that's another way to play the Tornadus, right? And these are your most popular sets, and we can pretty much see that, you know, in the Victory Road Tour. If you want to just click on every single one of these Tornadus teams and just view it, you're pretty much going to see that. So, you know, we'll just look at Oliver's team here, so just to see the third one. See, this one is Bleak Wind, Storm, Taunt, Rain Dance, Tailwind, right? So they're going this route. Here's the Ghost Terra, and Ghost Terra seems to be the, you know, pretty much the premier option on Tornadus, you know, since day one, of course, just to get around the extreme speed shenanigans. Let's look at this one right here. Same idea. This one is Covert Cloak, so this way you can get around the Icy Wind shenanigans as well as the fake out stuff. So that's also going to help you. And again, Open Team Sheet will, of course, tell you all this information, which is very, very useful, as opposed to praying on ladder like, oh my god, please don't be, you know, Terra Ghost, or please don't be Covert Cloak, that kind of thing. You know, we always hate our ladder play sometimes for that reason. How about this team? So this one, again, this one has the Protect, right? So there's no Icy Wind, there's no weather here, but instead we're just going to Protect, right? And again, you can like go through all of this, but it's pretty much the same idea with a lot of these Tornadus teams, right? So it really just depends on what you want to do. The advantage of like something like this, we'll go back to Tomiyuki, right? If you go for Rain Dance, you're dealing more damage with your Urshifu, of course, and at the same time, you're denying the Sunny Day, or denying Sun teams in general, and at the same time, what you're doing is making sure your Chien-Pao and your Rillaboom take less fire damage from the Arcanine over time, right? Because they love to click Flare Blitz. So at the same time, the Rain Dance is always very, very much appreciated. And then at the same time, the flip is also true if you have Sunny Day Tornadus, which enables your Flutter Mane. Not only that, it can also enable a Chi-Yu if the Chi-Yu is on that team, and we'll talk about Chi-Yu in the later portion of the video. But at the same time, if you even have Arcanine or Heatran on your team, they can do more damage under Sunny Day. But also, the Sunny Day also helps against an opposing Urshifu. It reduces the Surging Strikes / Aqua Jet damage, you know, in the sun. So it just really depends on what you value a little bit more, depending on your team. But these Tornadus hyper offensive teams, you know, they're structured in a way where you can pretty much just run a standard 6, but then just vary the sets a little bit. But, you know, as we go from 1 through 30, we can pretty much see that it was the premier archetype, and I expect that to be the case going into Pittsburgh Regionals, right? But that being said, we did get to see some other stuff and some other useful data that I would say, which we will now proceed into the next section. You know, staying on the topic of hyper offense, and you know, the other kind of variation that you can really utilize and do well at the given moment is just use Regidrago. And there's really two premier options, you know, both that we've covered on the channel already. So we'll look at this one. This one is, of course, the Eric Rios variation with Ferrograph and Goldango here. So the idea with Regidrago Tornadus, of course, we don't really need to explain. Click Tailwind, click Dragon Energy, things die next. All right. At the same time, you also have Goldango with Choice Specs doing a lot of damage. Great switch into you know, Amoonguss. Can do well against Dragonite Chien-Pao as well, you know, because you're a ghost type, you can't really get E-speeded and then you being a steel type are great against ice types, right? So that's also pretty good. And then at the same time, you deny priority moves in general, especially against stuff like, again, like we mentioned, Extreme Speed, Aqua Jet, whatever priority move they have. And then at the same time, Imprison Trick Room is just very, very punishing against a lot of those Trick Room teams. Now, of course, with the Farigiraf, Rocky Helmet, also very, very good here, against the Urshifu Surging Strikes damage. Great idea here. But then at the same time, you have a lot of pivot potential here on what is otherwise a very, very aggressive team. You have U-turn on the Urshifu, you have U-turn on the Rillaboom, so you can cycle out your fake outs and then reposition depending on if you want to preserve your Tailwind or not later on in the game, right? This one has the Icy Wind set, which is what we discussed earlier. So, pretty good team, very, very standard. Then we look at the other team with Mimikyu here, which we've also used recently on the channel. Remember Wayne Yu's team, he also had Mimikyu on that squad. This one also has Goldango here, where Wayne had a Life Orb Goldango set as opposed to Choice Specs Goldango. But either way, more or less the same concept. This is also, again, still Tailwind, Protect, Icy Wind with Focus Sash, Tornadus, Regidrago, Urshifu, Rillaboom. Same concept here. And then the Mimikyu, playing the Farigiraf role almost, right, with having access to Trick Room to deny potential Trick Room teams. You can still click priority moves against the team, of course, but Mimikyu just adds another dimension because, again, you have Shadow Sneak, another priority move that you can click. You can snipe some Flutter Manes that way, or force them to Terra, depending on how much damage they've taken already. Play Rough is really good against, an opposing Urshifu or just against another Dragon type, against another Chien-Pao, of course. Taunt, Mimikyu is also very, very useful. But overall, these are the two premier Regidrago teams at the given moment in terms of utilizing that kind of archetype, where you either have the Farigiraf version or you have the Mimikyu version. And that was pretty much it in terms of our top 30, right? In terms of, the hyper offense. Either you're doing Tornadus stuff with Arcanine Chien-Pao stuff, or you're doing Tornadus Regidrago ideas, right? And those are the two options in terms of hyper offense. Now, that being said, can you still play quote-unquote hyper offense without Tailwind? Yes. Those are more balanced teams, and we saw that even here, with Kazuki's team. But there's still pretty much some similar ideas that are you also utilizing it. Is this the same team? I want to say yes. It is the same team, right? But that being said, could be different sets here. This one, Leaf Storm Amoonguss is something that I expect to rise a little bit more. Great damage overall. You can, snipe some Urshifus that way. Also pretty decent into Ursaluna for that matter. But, just having a really, really strong grass type attack coming from a grass type Pokemon is always very much appreciated. That being said, do we see some others in terms of that concept? Yeah, this one here, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about it right now, actually. So, you almost want to put it like Tornadus here, right? But they went the defensive route with Klefki here with screens, along with Misty Terrain, which is a very, very good tech move. Reduces dragon type damage, of course, right? But then, stuff like Burn, right? You remove that. So that's also really good against something like Ursaluna. You can pretty much neuter their damage. And then at the same time, against yourself, you don't get spored. Really, really good, interesting tech move here from Klefki. I like it a lot. But other than that, again, you see this Flutter Mane Chiyu combination along with Landorus, Amoonguss, and Iron Hands. Very, very good team. I like it a lot. And if we just scroll down even more, I think we can find another like this. I saw it. I want to say, we'll go back to Francesco's team in a second. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we'll look at this one. So, Thunder is here instead of the Tornado slot. So, again, Eerie Impulse, very, very crippling. Thunder Wave, good speed control there. And then, of course, Taunt on Thundurus is also very, very good. And then at the same time, you have a very, very big electric move into an opposing Urshifu. And then if you get the paralysis on, some of these other Pokemon, it can be very, very good. It can work out in your favor in that sense. But again, you don't have to just play Tornadus with a standard 6. You can go other routes, which we just showed you, and they can work relatively well. And again, I do like that Klefki version. That was actually really, really good. Okay, Rain teams. They're still pretty good. And there was a new one that actually popped up here, and we'll take a look at that one in a second. But pretty much this one, we know this Pelipper, Chien-Pao, Urshifu idea with Goldango and Amoonguss. And then Iron Hands is the staple, the balance of that kind of Rain idea. But this one has Hurricane, Tailwind, and Wide Guard with Rocky Helmet. Very, very standard set here. Scarf Urshifu, Focus Sash Chien-Pao. This is Nasty Plot Leftovers Goldango with Amoonguss. Very, very good combination. Leaf Storm Amoonguss, of course. And then this one is Assault Vest Iron Hands with Terra Grass, right? Very, very standard rain idea. But then we look at this one, and then we see Toxicroak here, and that's what I wanted to highlight with this one. And, it's been a while since we've seen Toxicroak. It did have a couple of top cut results, back in July in the early format, or was it late June? But, Dry Skin is a very interesting ability. It can actually do well in rain and sun, right? Because you have good healing. But Fake Out Potential, Gunk Shot, good strong poison move, good against like Terra Fairy options, especially like Flutter Mane and or Cresselia. Then you have Low Kick and Sucker Punch, good priority move, especially with Chien-Pao here. I can imagine that's also a pretty good idea. But nice to see Toxicroak get a good result in a big tournament like this. But at the same time here, what else do we have? We have Landorus and Pelipper as opposed to Landorus and Tornadus. So, but still, Goggles, Tornadus, Goggles, Landorus, I should say. Very, very good idea. Getting around Amoonguss is important to be able to hit maybe a opposing Goldango for that matter, or something else that's hiding behind the Amoonguss. But Wide Guard, very, very good. Especially against a very, very spread heavy meta at the given moment that we have here. And then everything else is just relatively standard here. Was there another rain team that we saw? Besides the Tornadus rain, right? I think that was it, right? But if you just look at some other online tours, like, from Limitless, you can pretty much see that there's still a bunch of rain teams running around. And just because they're very, very good. They're very balanced. They have a lot of different options for a lot of different things. The Iron Hands, can come into a lot of different games. And you don't always have to bring Pelipper, right? And Pelipper is nice, but you don't always have to bring it, okay? But I digress. Okay, next up, I actually want to look at a Pokemon in particular. That is Landorus here because, you see a lot of Landorus, right? But are they all the same set? That's also what I wanted to look at. They are not. And there's a lot of different ways to run Landorus. There's like, the Goggles set, the Assault Vest set, the Bandit set. There's also Life Orb now. Let's just take a look. So this one is Terra Flying with U-Turn, Stomping Tantrum, and Terra Blast. So this one is meant to be a little bit more of an aggressive Landorus. This is probably one of your more popular Terra options, because of the Terra Flying, Terra Blast. So that's one idea. Okay, then if we scroll down here, is this also Goggles? This is a Banded Landorus with Stomping Tantrum, Earthquake. And the synergy here is you have with the Tornadus, right? You can click Earthquake next to this. You can even argue, you can even put like Terra Flying Chien-Pao and combo that. Not necessary, of course, but it is an idea. Or you can just simply protect your Chien-Pao and still click Earthquake anyway. But this one is meant to pivot in and out as well, just because you have the U-turn idea, just in case it's not quite so favorable as a lead or, at some point in the game. But, Choice Band Landorus is a very, very good aggressive Pokemon. And, if you just consider like this versus Dragonite, Landorus has a stronger attack pool, right? It's faster than Dragonite. Okay, you get Stab Rock Slide, and you don't have E-Speed, but that's okay, right? You still have a lot more tools available to Landorus that Dragonite cannot give you, which is why people have been dropping it and opting for the Landorus. Okay, then we look at some of these two from Raul. So this one is the Scarf Landorus. So we've already seen 3 different Landoruses, but this one, again, Terra Blast, Terra Flying, with U-turn. So now you have the speed potential, and now you can outspeed other Flutter Manes and either hit him with the Stomping Tantrum or hit him with a Terra Blast, Terra Flying. But, this helps you win the mirror as well, right? If 2 Landoruses come out, you have the Choice Scarf. You can just U-turn out and remove your Intimidate and get out of there and bring something else in to deal with that Landorus. That's also an idea, but Scarf Landorus is very, very good. Then if you look at Francesco's here, another Scarf Landorus, so very, very popular choice as well. And I like Scarf Landorus. We had that on our Moltres team later on, which is really, really nice. This one is the Life Orb Landorus with Earthquake and Stomping Tantrum. So this is definitely a more aggressive Landorus because of the Life Orb potential. But you're not locked out of other moves, which is what you have, when you do the Choice Band set. So Life Orb will still give you the option to click other moves. Then if we look at Victor's team here, this one is Assault Vest Landorus. So what did we see? We saw Scarf, we saw Banded, we saw Life Orb. Now we have Assault Vest. Many different. Goggles is also coming up there. But this one is a bulkier Landorus set, so a little bit more longevity on this one. Able to take some special attacks relatively well. So Flutter Mane Chiyu is something that I would consider trying to survive. Then we look at this one. Here's the Goggles Landorus with Taunt Landorus Goggles. So that's also pretty cool. Then if you just go look at a couple more here, let's look at Gabriel and Daniels. Yes, Citrus Berry Landorus, another Landorus set. So this one has Protect on the Landorus. But again, a little bit more longevity and recovery there. And here's Daniels with another choice band with Stone Edge. So lots of different ways to play Landorus. Some have Earthquake, some do not, depending on if there's a Tornadus, of course. But at the same time, it really just depends on what you value. If you value a little bit more bulk, you can do Assault Vest. If you want more damage, you can do Choice Band. If you want more damage but not getting locked out of your other moves, you can do Life Orb. If you want the speed on your side, Scarf is your way. If you care about getting around the Mungus, then you go with the Goggles set, right? Lots of different ways. All depends on the viewer and how you like to play your Landorus. But all in all, they all work. Okay, next up, all this talk about Hyper Offense. What about the Trick Room teams? Did they have any significant results? There's a few. Like, I understand, you know, Fraygraph and there's a Mimikyu on these Hyper Offensive teams, but those are not, like, really Trick Room teams, right? You know, those are just ways to deal with Trick Room. If we had to, like, really pinpoint on some of these actual Trick Room teams, here's one. Actually, is this one? Yeah, we'll take a look at this one. You know, Indeedee Armrouge, there's your Trick Room duo, but this one is, like, Trick Room Indeedee, but no Trick Room on this Armrouge. It's actually weak armor with weakness policy, right? Which is, I'm not surprised about the weakness policy. And neither am I about the weak armor, but you know, just having this set in general, again, it's very, very good. It's just like, oh my goodness, weak armor, weakness policy. This is going to do a lot of damage. This is something that we've seen in like previous formats months ago, but it's really just interesting to see here right now at this given moment, especially this set right here with stored power and endure. I understand, of course, the stored power idea, just because you're getting so much boost from the weakness policy and the weak armor. So stored power probably does a lot of damage. And then you have the endure idea where you can just, you know, not die, all right, and then get off one attack. So I understand this concept. So this is one way to look at it. This is what we call like a Tailwind team. By the way, that was a fly that just ran by me. By the way, this is Acrobatics Tornadus, which is something that I completely missed, right? Along with like Substitute. This is a very, very interesting idea. But if we just look at some other teams that have the Trick Room type, this is really cool. This is Angela Hunter right here. Like this is, of course, Orangu, Ursaluna. There are two standard things here with Instruct and an Earthquake spam, along with Inner Focus. Not even like, doesn't even have to be Earthquake spam. It could just be like Facade and Headlong Rush, of course. I'm gonna swat that thing in a second. But what's also pretty cool here is the Enamorus. You know, it's hard to use this. It's hard to use Enamorus in general just because, you know, you always want Flutter Mane, but on a Trick Room team, Enamorus makes a lot of sense. You know, with Springtide Storm, especially with Dazzlingly Moonblast, does a lot of damage, especially with choice specs. I don't know if you guys have checked out Enamorus' stats, but it's actually very, very bulky and at the same time does a lot of damage. Perfect idea behind Trick Room. But then you have Bruxus here, which is kind of playing the Fraygraph role, of course, you know, with Dazzling, just denying priority moves in general. But again, with like Power Lens over here, by the way, this is like, what is this? Power Band Urshifu. Oh my goodness. What is this? Oh man, this is a team. I like this a lot. This is kind of funny. But it makes a lot of sense, and it's pretty cool to see it do well here in VR. Mousehold here with Focus Sass. So probably follow me, set up Trick Room idea. And then at the same time, you know, just sweep with some of these big hitters like Enamorus or Ursaluna. So that's pretty cool there. But then you have the standard one, of course, with the Indeedee Armrouge, you know, Hatterene Torkoal, and then here's the Hisuian Lilligant. And then instead of Ursaluna, there's an Iron Hands here. So that's also pretty cool. But again, this one is actually Flash Fire and still Weakness Policy. Okay, so that's good. And then here's the Wide Guard idea, which I do like a lot, of course, just because, again, a very, very spread move heavy meta. Wide Guard is very, very useful. Very standard Indeedee set here. I'm surprised it's not Rocky Helmet, but again, Psychic Seed is still pretty good. Hatterene Life Orb here, Charcoal Torkoal, very standard, and of course Lilligant with Sash and Terra Ghost. This is very, very standard, very cookie cutter, and this is the, you know, one of the teams I would expect to see a little bit more heading into the regionals, right, with Pittsburgh coming up. Very standard 6, again with the Iron Hands here with Fake Out Potential here, instead of the Ursaluna, which is always a threat on teams like this. But in terms of like the Trick Room idea, that was it. You know, you don't really have a whole lot here. You just have those two, including this, and then you just have the other two Regidrago teams with 2 Trick Room Pokemon, but not necessarily having the Trick Room archetype. So what does that mean? It means the more aggressive, hyper offensive teams are, you know, a little bit more preferred at the moment. And even though Trick Room goes up, it doesn't really matter because you can just play around it by just clicking your priority moves. And a lot of these hyper offensive teams have at least, you know, 3 Pokemon with priority moves. And then at the same time, you can just remove Indeedee's terrain, you know, with your Rillaboom, and then you're free to just click your priority moves, right? So that's the idea there. But does that mean that Trick Room teams are good? Of course not. They're still very, very good, especially those Cresselia, Ursaluna teams, which, by the way, I am surprised that I don't see any within the top cut. And not only do I not see that, I don't see Cresselia in general, right? Is that correct here? Yeah. No Cresselia in the top 30. Very, very surprising. I think this is one of the first tournaments I've seen that doesn't have Cresselia with in the top 30. Like, forget about like top 8, top 16, top 30. Not a single Cresselia. Okay, we got 2 Dragonites, but not a single Cresselia in the top cut. Very, very interesting in that sense. All right, Chi-Yu again, Flutter Mane Chi-Yu, very, very good combination. If you like it, play it. Does a lot of damage. Very, very impressive. In my opinion, I think Chi-Yu is just a little bit more impressive than the Chien-Pao. But that's just me. That's just me. And the 2 that I like in particular is the one from right here from Tehran, also known as Aura Rayquaza. Basically, again, Landorus, Tornadus, very, very standard double genie combination. And then you have Flutter Mane Chi-Yu, especially Life Orb Chi-Yu. Oh my goodness, this is going to do a lot of damage. With Specs Flutter Mane, woo! Okay, and then you have the defensive backbone with Amoonguss and Iron Hands. I like this. I like this a lot. This is very, very good. And then, not only that, this is Skyplate Tornadus. So now you combine Skyplate Tornadus with Chi-Yu, and now all of a sudden this Bleak Wind Storm is doing a ton of damage. And then, again, just like you already know what Flutter Mane Chi-Yu does, right? And they're very, very good as a lead. You can even just lead Tornadus plus one of these and then have the other one in the back. And then either have something like Landorus and Iron Hands just to patch things up. So, a very, very aggressive team with, again, 2 defensive backbone Pokemon. I like it a lot. Makes a lot of sense. Then if you look at over right here, Romero's team, which is again a very, very similar style of doing it. But here's the Dragonite. Okay, so you have Tornadus and Dragonite, or actually just Dragonite Chien-Pao combination. Outrage early, Stomping Tantrum with speed, extreme speed, very, very standard here. But this one is a Goggles Chi-Yu, which helps you get around Amoonguss. So that's pretty good. Snarl, Flamethrower, and Will-O-Wisp. So this is actually more of a supportive Chi-Yu, which I also like. You know, because you're going to rely on your Flutter Mane to do all the damage, whereas your Chi-Yu can help, you know, get a little bit more longevity here with, you know, with Will-O-Wisp providing that, you know, physical attack reduction because you don't have Landorus anymore. You don't have a Hisuian Arcanine. So at the very least, you have Will-O-Wisp access, and then you have Snarl for special attack damage reduction, which is actually pretty good. And then here's Sunny Day to have your Flutter Mane and Chi-Yu do a little bit more damage. This is what we were talking about earlier in the video. But not only that, this actually has two weathers, Rain Dance and Sunny Day. So that's also very interesting, which is actually why I'm highlighting this team in particular, because you have double weather here. And then at the same time, that also lets your Urshifu do a little bit more damage. But this is pretty good as well in terms of something to try. You know, again, just like Flutter Mane, Urshifu, Chien-Pao, slap on the Chi-Yu here, of course, and then just have Dragonite here, Landorus, or Arcanine here. Just either way, you got the idea in terms of like trying to utilize the archetype. But I do like those 2 the most. I think there's a couple more here that are still like pretty good here. Yeah, here's this one. But this one has an Ursaluna on it, which still makes sense, of course. Gives you something to bring into Trick Room. But I think the Iron Hands just more than suffices here. But it's still pretty good. I think there's more here. Yeah, we already covered this one from My Stars, of course, the Clefty idea. But same idea. You can easily just slap on like a Tornadus here, and you pretty much have the same idea. But of course, they're going the defensive bulkier route in terms of that. Then of course you have the Jude Lee Neil variation. Whoever came up with, I believe it was Neil, of course. But Jude's been using this team. It's like since the last 2 months, I would say. Okay, in terms of that idea. But again, Chi-Yu teams, very good. Here's another one with Dondozo Tatsugiri. We've seen that combination relatively well, you know, throughout regulation season. So no question about it there. But if you want to go to Pittsburgh with like Flutterfish, as they call it, it's a very good archetype. I recommend it. Play it. All right, and then last but not least here, I do want to at least look at Dondozo here. You know, you always have to ask yourself, is Dondozo still relevant enough where I have to respect? To me, I think the answer is yes. I know there was only like one top cut here with Dondozo, and it doesn't have as many top cuts as it had in, you know, previous formats. Of course, right? Because of the power creep with all these legendaries flying around. But is it still good? Yes. Is it as good as previous formats? Of course not. You know, and it's really up to you if you want to be able to, you know, play it, or, you know, do you want to respect it enough as much as you did in previous formats? You know, at the same time, a lot of Amoonguses ran Clear Smog when that was a thing. Now that Dondozo is not so much of a thing, do you still run Clear Smog? A lot of them pretty much just gave it up. But here we have one within the top cut here. So the kitchen of heavy offense, right? So Dondozo Tatsugiri, here it is. Wave Crash, Earthquake, Order Up. I like this set. Terra Dragon is also pretty interesting as well. Here's the Citrus Berry Tatsugiri as opposed to something like Scarf. So Helping Hand, and then Money, Water, Drake, and Meteor. That's also pretty good. And then Dragonite, Chen-Pao, and then Flutter Mane Shield. Basically, 3 cores in one. That's one way to pretty much just go about it. And it's a very, very easy way to go about it in terms of like, you know, just bring 2 of the 3 cores, right? Into pretty much every single game. But at the same time, you know, Dondozo Tatsugiri still needs to be respected. All right, I still think you need something for it, or at least a game plan for it. Like let's leave it at that. Okay, Dondozo still needs a game plan, you know, in Regulation D. Okay, and then now we also want to take a look at Gastrodon here, and there are 2 teams, you know, pretty much the same team, probably built together, or at least, you know, have the same idea where you want to use Gastrodon for your water type as far as like something like Rillaboom, for example. So Gastrodon here, you know, Earth Power, Yawn, Icy Wind, good speed control here with the Icy Wind. Yawn, good for repositional purposes, right? Forcing the opponent to either switch or go to sleep. Great Urshifu counter, of course, like we mentioned, throughout Regulation D, I should say. And then, you know, you just look at this team. Landorus doesn't really want to go against Urshifu. King Gambit, Heatran, Chen-Pao, these are all things that hate Urshifu. So, you know, you need the Gastrodon here to really patch up that matchup. And it makes a lot of sense. So then the question begs to differ, like, will we see more Gastrodon in Pittsburgh? I don't know. I think you'll see like a little bit, but I still think Urshifu is still just going to be the premier water type. And, you know, with the occasional Gyarados here and there. But, you know, Gastrodon is a nice little pick. You'll see it maybe once or maybe twice. But at the same time, it's just, you just miss the offense of Urshifu. Surging Strikes through Protect is just too good. That being said, you know, if you opt for the more slower positional defensive game, meta countering, you know, Gastrodon could be your type here. But just looking at some other stuff, like even King Gambit, like, you know, King Gambit has fallen off completely in Regulation D because Urshifu, right? But it's nice to see it again, and it has a place, right? Consider all the Intimidate options like Arcanine, Landorus, Gyarados. They're running around on pretty much a lot of these teams, so why not have a defined Pokemon? We saw a little bit of Galarian Zapdos, but almost no King Gambit. And you almost have to, you know, ask yourself, like, can King Gambit do well? I think it can. It just really depends on the team. But again, Urshifu just really hurts it. And then even if you do give it Defiant, like if you have a Landorus, you know, you're faster. You just click the ground move and that Defiant doesn't matter anymore, right? So it just really all depends on how you want to view it. But it's tough to merit a slot at the moment with the King Gambit. As far as like other options, niche options, you know, we mentioned the Crogunt, I'm sorry, the Toxicroak at the beginning of the video, as far as like another niche pick. But other than that, you know, this is pretty much what you're going to see in Pittsburgh. You're going to see a lot of Hyper Offense. You're going to see, you know, the occasional Ursaluna Trick Room teams. I'm surprised there was no Cresselia here. And then, you know, do you have a way around it, right? And then I expect to see like some other archetypes. You know, I expect to see some of those back Scalper teams, the Zapdos Landers teams. Well, what's another like popular archetype? We already mentioned like Regidrago stuff. This team, right? The team that Jude has over here, I expect to see this. People are gonna run that. And then from there, you know, do you expect to see like some surprises? Like, you know, is Dondozo gonna come back? I don't know. I think we're at the point where like this is where the meta is, and until somebody like makes some groundbreaking, you know, niche pick, I think this is it. This is what you're gonna be seeing. So let me know what you think of the VR challenge. And again, if you're trying to planned for Pittsburgh or some other regional later on in September. If you want to book a session with me now that I'm back, feel free to, sub on the channel with the tier 3 sub, which is the team building sub. From there, we get to have a one-on-one Discord call. We build the team from scratch. We hash out all the EVs. And then from there, we get you that squad that you need to be able to compete in these regionals. And then at the same time, if you just need something for online rank ladder play or some other online tournament that's not regional, we do that as well. So feel free to sub with the tier 3 sub. And again, that's in the video description. There's a link for it. Or in the video, in the comment section, there is a pinned comment where you can sub to the channel with that tier 3 sub and get your session with me now that I'm back here after my vacation. But we'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good one.